myself as someone who isn't autistic enough to be
Right.
considered autistic, or like can, when in reality it's because I'm just good at masking.
Yeah.
And so for me, masking has sort of just been like a tool that I've used. And I think THC has allowed me to stop using masking as a tool
Mm.
and kind of see what's underneath that, if that makes sense.
Yeah, it definitely does.
I almost got lost.
No, I followed you completely. It sounds like it's really helpful to just live your life, in a comfortable way and to be in your body as it is and not have that anxiety taking over your life so much.
I mean, especially because in terms of autism in the eyes of the medical field, a lot of the resources for autistic people are for autistic children.
Yeah.
And there's not a lot of resources towards adults.
Mm.
And someone might say that using THC isn't necessarily a medical tool in a way that like getting speech therapy and things like that. But I think THC is probably one of the closer things that we have at the moment, because like, I mean, again, I can only speak for myself, but it just helps alleviate the stress that being now an autistic adult and like what it comes with,
Mm.
having to worry about a career. Am I going to be able to afford a home one day? Am I through this career of writing, or am I ever going to be in a healthy relationship and things like that? Thoughts that autistic people have. It's funny because I actually wasn't having that great of a day yesterday with my sensory overload yesterday. And I was talking to a friend on the phone who's also neurodivergent, and they were telling me that they too go through periods of kind of questioning everything, in the sense of like, well, why should I address issues that I have if they're just going to keep popping up over and over again, in terms of like the anxiety and stuff like that? Because like you hear therapists tell you that you got to like embrace your feelings and embrace your anxieties, and that way it doesn't overpower you, but then they come back and try to overpower you again and again and again. And so for THC, I use it because it helps me deal with that idea that I'm never going to fully be able to get rid of those fears. I don't think it's necessarily wise to get rid of those fears. I think it's unrealistic, because I think we're human beings with our own insecurities and fears and doubts and stuff like that. And I don't think that's ever going to change. But I think for me, THC to a degree has helped it make it copable for me.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah. Very interesting. And finally, would you have any advice for somebody else on the autism spectrum who's thinking about sort of getting into experimenting with cannabis or CBD?
Like I mentioned earlier, I would start off low in terms of dosage, because I'm a 6'2", 220-pound male, and how THC affects my body will be different compared to a 5'4", 100-pound woman. And I'm just speaking on terms of like physiology in a sense. So that's number one. And number two, go into it with an open mind. Because I'm sure like we all know people who've smoked pot or done gummies and stuff like that, whether it's regularly or not. I would kind of just approach it with an open mind. Don't go into it thinking that you're going to feel a certain way when you take sativa versus when you take indica. Let your own experience dictate that for you.
Yeah, that's a very good point. Open-mindedness, a little bit of courage, and maybe some journaling. I often hear
Maybe some journaling. Yeah, there you go.
helps
Some note taking.
Very good idea. Thank you, Ian. Thank you so much for taking the time to chat to us. And to our listeners, be sure to check out his article in the latest issue of Different Leaf. Next up, we're sitting down with my little brother, musician Spud Smith. So I did, but you didn't smoke weed in high school, did you?
No, I've never smoked it, actually.
You never smoked weed?
I have never smoked anything.
What?
Not even cigarettes.
This is news to me.
Mm-hmm. Well, I mean, passive smoking, because I'm a musician, it's everywhere.
But you were a teenager. Why did you choose to never try smoking?
Because I was possibly the squarest teenager there was.
That's true. I can account for this.
Yeah.
But you never even wanted to try anything?
Not really. My view of any kind of substance as a teenager was it's evil.
Why?
Because I guess I was just a goody two-shoes rule follower.
Oh, you like rules.
Yeah. And I guess
Yeah.
it was just like, you know, all the adverts and the stuff teachers were saying was like, stay away from drugs, kids. And
Mm-hmm.
so I was like, okay, I'll stay away from them.
It's just so funny that we were raised together and I was like, 3 years older than you.
You can't tell me what to do.
And I was like, no, you didn't tell me not to do drugs. I'm going to go do drugs.
Exactly.
And we were so different like that. Like you were like, okay, whatever you say.
Yeah.
I shall abide by those rules.
I'm still like that.
You are still like that. That's just, rules are really important to you.
Mm.
Why do you like rules so much?
It's probably to do with being autistic. Rules give my life rigidity and structure. And
So you don't really like to lose control, right?
I have drunk alcohol quite badly in the past.
Yeah.
But alcohol's been the only thing really. And I only started that when I was at uni.
Mm-hmm.
Or as they'll call it, college.
Thank you.
I didn't have my first drink till I was 18.
So did you enjoy drinking?
Yeah, a little too much, I think. I wouldn't exactly go as far as to say that I'm a proper alcoholic, but like I've definitely stopped cold turkey 10 years ago and I haven't touched a drop.
Yeah, so you've been sober.
Just for the sake of like not having it there, because I know that like as a family, we're quite a sort of addictive personality type. And
Yes, yeah. I'm in addiction recovery.
yeah, so that and various other members of our family are as well. And I just want to remove any possibility that I could become one.
So let's talk about the first time you tried cannabis. It wasn't smoking. It was an edible.
It's never been smoking. It was an edible, yeah.
What do you remember about the experience?
Well, actually, the first time I got cannabis wasn't from you.
Hey, I didn't do it, Mom.
You
All
gave
right.
me my second one.
All right. Who beat me to the punch?
My first one was a bunch of brownies made by my friend.
And was that at college?
Yeah.
What was your experience of it?
I think it was a bit kind of anticlimactic because I was expecting to just go to Saturn and didn't.
What happened?
I just got a little bit merry and like giggly. My tics stopped, which was cool, which is something I guess we need to talk about in this.
Let's talk about your autism. When were you diagnosed with it and how does it impact your life?
I was diagnosed in October 2018.
When you were how old?
I was 28, turning 29.
Yeah, late life diagnosis.
Really late. Yeah. So only a few years ago, really. And it completely just changed everything for me. Like it redefined my whole history in my brain.
Mm.
You know, you get this sort of few months where you're coming to terms with like, oh, this in my childhood was because of autism and this was because of, you know.
Mm.
Yeah, it just completely made sense as to why, you know, like as a teenager, you're well aware that I had these tics and motor tics and stuff and throat noises and all that.
Yeah.
And now I realize that's because of Tourette's, because I was also diagnosed with Tourette's syndrome. Don't worry, not the sweary kind.
No, but I swear enough for the two of us.
Yeah.
You actually don't swear very much at all, do you?
Not with you, but I do.
Oh, I see. You holding out. Well, what were the things that we had discussed with the doctor that they said, yes, that definitely means to me that you're on the spectrum?
Oh, stuff like needing to have definite rules and boundaries for things. When I was a baby, I used to organize my toys instead of playing with them. I had a very specific need for things like, you know, certain books or toys.
And they had to be organized.
They had to be in a certain order. Yeah.
And I remember that you had to memorize certain things. Pokemon cards were really big, and you had to memorize everything.
Autistic people generally have things called special interests. So mine are things like Pokemon, and I love dogs, and music was one, you know, and I'm now a professional musician, and it was the thing that was the turning point for me, because as a small child, I used to have these horrible tantrums, which we now realize were meltdowns.
Mm-hmm.
And at the age of, I don't know, 9 or 10, I discovered music, And playing piano was just this massive catharsis, this outlet. And I stopped having such bad meltdowns because I had some way of outletting.
Yeah. Did it ease any of your tics as well?
Yeah, I mean, as long as I'm playing, it does.
Is that true now when you're playing or listening to music, your tics subside a little bit?
Yeah, I do have this thing when I'm playing bass, I sway from side to side.
Yeah.
That's like a stim.
So you do a lot of stimming as well. And
Yeah.
for those that don't know, stimming is just sort of a fidget, like a stimulant that your body needs. Like it might look like foot tapping, or it might look like
hand flapping or
moving your hands. Yeah.
Yeah, so I have a bit of a difficult time telling which of my movements are tics and which ones are stims, because they all feel comforting.
But you feel the need to differentiate and categorize.
Yeah, exactly. Again,
tough
it's the
life,
opposite.
isn't it? You're also sensitive to lights and sounds.
Yeah, massively. I never go anywhere without sunglasses and earplugs.
Mm-hmm.
I got molded earplugs made because I need to have like the maximum amount of protection that I can. Not only because my ears are my job, but also because I'm just really sensitive to sudden noises, and certain noises sound louder to me than they do to other people. I can't go on the underground in London without my earplugs in.
And what about social situations?
Normally, I can't stand to be in places like clubs and bars because they're just too noisy and crowded and hot. I can't stand being too hot.
Yeah.
And I run really hot as well, like I'm just a human furnace. So, I have a backpack with all of my stuff in it that I need to cope. And one of those things is a hand fan. Yeah, even in the winter, sometimes I use it.
Does your autism manifest in social situations at all?
Yeah, it stops me sometimes from talking to strangers without masking a lot.
What's masking mean?
It's like pretending to be neurotypical, basically.
So what do you do?
Choreographing your speech and preparing what you're going to say, choreographing your facial expressions so that you seem more emotive than you normally are, making my voice go up and down more than it normally does.
Yeah.
And just acting more sort of extroverted than I am.
Wow. And what does that make you feel like afterwards?
It's exhausting. It varies how much I have to mask depending on who I'm with and what the situation is. Like, obviously, when I'm with you and your husband, I don't mask at all.
Right.
Because I'm just comfortable.
Yeah.
But if I'm at a gig or something, even if I'm with people I know, I don't know the crowd, I don't know the venue staff. There's an element of having to pretend in order to cope, I guess.
So when you first tried cannabis, that did affect you, because the first time you tried cannabis was in university. A mate of yours gave you a pretty weak brownie.
Yeah.
And sometimes that happens to people. Sometimes it doesn't affect them the first time they try it. And it's sort of your body activating to it for the first time. And it takes some people a couple times before they feel it. So I guess it was the next time for you that you felt the THC the second time you tried it. What was that experience like for you?
Well, I mean, the first time there wasn't probably too much THC in the thing because it was probably English stuff that wasn't very strong, and I don't know where it was from.
Yep.
The second time it was obviously stronger stuff. I think it was like a chocolate raisin or something.
Yeah.
Or a blueberry, something like that. And I think you told me to take one of them, and I think I took 3.
Why?
Because I didn't remember that they were laced with THC.
Laced.
Not laced, but you know what I mean.
Yeah, infused.
Infused, thank you. Wrong word.
Yeah.
And then they took about, I don't know, an hour or something to kick in.
And we were sitting around the dinner table with the family.
Wait, I think it was it Christmas or our dad's birthday or something like that? And it was like a big family gathering, and then all of a sudden I caught your eye and I just went, you saw my face change and went, oh no.
Yeah, that's my memory of it. Yeah. I looked across the table and I was like, oh no, what have we done?
And I suddenly looked at you like, oh, something's happening.
Yeah.
Because in the intervening hour, I had forgotten that I'd taken them.
That happens to everybody.
So suddenly, Yeah, suddenly I forgot